What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Wednesday, September 6, 2023. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host, Phil. Phil, every time I do that intro, it's the same thing over and over again. It's just a different date, and every time the music starts in and I forget what I'm supposed to be saying right off the bat.
You don't have a script in front of you yet?
Nope. I think that would mess me up because I am a terrible person to read. I can't speak well. English is a second language to me. Idiot is the first, and it's not a good thing. And it's weird that I'm a podcaster.
This is why we need the professional voiceover intro at some point.
Yeah.
So you don't have to.
Yeah.
You can just start talking about the first topic right away. You don't have to do any of the intro stuff.
Yeah, we need a higher budget, and Pat blew all our budget because he's still halfway across the world, and He robbed our banks. He used it all to fly all the way over there, and he's hanging out in New Zealand right now while we're stuck slaving, editing. And if you liked the YouTube version last week, you can thank Phil for that, not Pat. Pat is not around. Phil did all that.
Yeah, he's trying to promote, but I don't know if where he went is really our demographic or market because it's a little far away. But maybe we'll get some fans way over in Australia, New Zealand, and Samoa. Maybe we'll get some whenever we look at that, what is it, the demographic map that we can see and like where people listen from, maybe we'll start getting a few more blips on that side of the world.
We should have given him some like VSC bumper stickers. Just every car he walks around, just slap it right on the bumper.
We don't have one for our own bumpers.
No, we don't. Not yet. So if you want to help us reach the bumper sticker budget, as well as like the AI reading the intro so I can stop doing it, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Threads at Buffalo Sports Collective, on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com and look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. Phil, we should have them do that also, so I don't have to do it. I can just hit a button and they do all that because I've messed that one up quite a few times. I don't think I've ever messed up the intro, but I've definitely messed that reading up. But Phil, well, this is our bon voyage. I think that's the right words to use there. I can't even use English, and I'm trying to use a different language. To the Buffalo Beauts. It is officially official now. The rumors were true, and everything that we were hearing was confirmed the other day. The Buffalo Beauts no longer exist. They are not a part of the new women's hockey league that is starting up, I think, in January. The teams are going to be Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, New York, Minnesota, and Boston. This doesn't mean Buffalo is never returning, but that just means the league has to expand and Buffalo has to be included in it. But that does mean it officially ends our Buffalo Beauts coverage. It was a very short run, and it was a very disappointing run, and we were also very disappointed because we can't cover them again this year. We were very excited to see where we could take this in this coming up year with the new coach and some new players, and you got to remember some of these players were actually signing on, and I think I was keeping track of how many spots they still had, and I think they signed like 10 or 13 players or something like that, and like there was 5 or 6 new names part of it. So it is disappointing. The coverage is ceasing to exist now. So after this episode, this is the last episode you will see of that logo with the Beauts on it. From this episode, well, from next episode forward, we will be removing them. We're keeping the same logo there in the archives in case they ever come back, but the logo with the Beauts on it, because we don't cover them anymore, will cease to exist. But thank you for a great ride, and we're definitely going to miss it.
Yeah, I was just peeking around my room for my hat. I was going to quickly throw it on, but I don't see it. I thought I had it right next to me. I don't.
I got it.
I mean, it was like you mentioned, it was 1 year. It was fun for the 1 year. We were looking forward to this season, trying to maybe get to more games and just follow them. I don't want to say more closely because I think we were doing a pretty good job with the coverage we had, given what was out there. But just looking forward to year 2. You know, the year 1 of following a team, it's a lot of learning the sport, learning how things happen, and just trying to understand the league a little bit more. So we were going to really kind of dive in a little bit more in year 2, and we just don't get that opportunity. So hopefully in the future they do expand back to Buffalo at some point. How everything kind of went down, we won't really get into it because we could probably spend the rest of the episode talking about it. But it's just disappointing how it all went down and that Buffalo wasn't included, especially considering you got a New York team in there, but it's not Buffalo. You see Toronto, you see Boston, two of Buffalo's humongous rivals throughout all of sports, and you aren't able to get a Buffalo team there. Just disappointing, but like you said, hopefully if they expand, Buffalo will be on the short list of teams to possibly rejoin the league at some point.
So I couldn't find my hat. It was actually my skydiving hat that has a little poofy on top, which is the same one as like the Beauts one. But I ran in my closet and I got my my Beauts shirt. So when you talk next, I'm gonna throw that on to honor them one more time. And yeah, but it's definitely stinks. No more Buffalo Beauts, not just on this, but in general. And I also think I saw that a bunch of the PHF stats are just gone, and a lot of people that cover women's professional sports are saying that a lot of women's history is pretty much wiped out in professional sports just because nobody keeps track of it. And the leagues, when they cease to exist, everything just gets deleted. So I definitely still have the Beauts stats from last year. I have their history of numbers and stuff like that, and career stats. So if anybody out there actually needs them, and for some reason you're listening to this small little podcast, you could follow us and hit us up on Buffalo Sports Collective on all the social media sites, and I'll be happy to send it over to anybody that wants it or needs it. But yeah, it definitely stinks that our coverage with them was so short. It was kind of a rough season. There were some high points in it and but definitely some low points. But we were definitely excited to see what a new coach could bring to the system and what the new players were going to be. And it definitely stinks. But again, I'll say it again. Thank you for a great ride, and we will miss it. But Phil, with that, we will move on to the Buffalo Bills. Did you know there's a game coming up on Monday night?
I did hear rumors that the Bills were going to be playing outside of New York on Monday night.
Yeah, they're going to be in New Jersey. They're going to be facing the New Jersey Jets. But we're not really going to dive into the coverage of that. We're going to record on next Tuesday instead of Mondays and put it on a Wednesday. So we'll have the whole breakdown of that one as my dog is rolling around behind me on her back. And she's doing little circles on the ground. So you can see that in the video if you watch it on YouTube. But, Phil, the 53-man roster was released on that last week Tuesday, and we record on Monday nights, put it out on Wednesday, so we weren't able to talk about that. But I think the biggest move really was the trade of Boogie Basham. And in my 53-man roster prediction write-up, I had him not making the team. I did not have him being traded for pretty much pennies. But he did get moved. He got moved to the pretty much Buffalo Giants right now because they're just stealing everybody. We became the Carolina Bills. The Giants are becoming the Buffalo Giants. So I guess what is your thought on the trade and what's your thought on the overall 53-man roster?
Yeah, you dive into a little bit more of the roster depth, I guess we'll put it at, and just kind of the back end of the roster bubble kind of players. I think you're a little bit more in tune than I am. There was nothing that blew my mind with the roster, the 53-man. I mean, like you mentioned when we were originally talking about it, your predicted 53-man roster was pretty spot on. And usually if it's that accurate, I mean, not saying you're bad at this, but usually if it's that accurate, I mean, even when you were talking about it, you didn't have too many bubble guys. You had a lot of guys just returning. And for the most part, the 53-man just wasn't that challenging, I want to say, to kind of predict this year outside of a few bottom 3-4 players on the team. So to me, the 53-man just nothing shocked me really that much. Like you said, Boogie being traded, especially after the preseason he was having, that he looked really good, and the Bills kind of needing that position pretty badly and needing any kind of support they can get. I was surprised to see him traded just because he was doing well in preseason. If he had a bad preseason after kind of how he played last year, I would have expected exactly what you said, like possibly just being moved off the roster altogether. Seeing that he had a good preseason, I was a little surprised to see him just off the roster in general. Obviously, you can only keep so many of those kinds of players, and it was good to see that somebody wanted him for something, so you're at least recouping something on what was a second-round pick for Boogie?
Yep.
Yeah, so very short-lived for a second-rounder on the team. Looks kind of bad. We mentioned it a little while ago. I see in your notes you're going to bring some stuff up soon, but yeah, just not great overall to see Boogie moved, being a second round pick and already off your roster that quickly. I mean, one of the big things the Bills were known for or just kind of really wanted to be was drafting players and building from within and re-signing those players. And I think they're starting to get away from that a smidge because they just have not been able to find the gold in these drafts like they were originally. And overall, though, 53-man roster seemed, I don't want to say completely chalk, but pretty much kind of how we expected it to go.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people online that were critiquing Brandon Beane's draft, and I've definitely been one of them that he hasn't been hitting on as many picks as I wish he was. But in an NFL draft like that, you're going to have plenty of misses. Like, these players are coming into the NFL a massive step up from college, and you're not really sure how they're going to end up panning out, especially if you get into the third, the fourth, the fifth, sixth, seventh rounds. And then, of course, the free agents that you also sign, undrafted guys. But I think the more I'm looking into it, the more I'm impressed with how he's been doing in the later rounds. So, yes, he might not be nailing those day 2 picks, the Cody Fords, the AJ Epinezas, the Zach Mosses, obviously now the Boogie Bashams. But in 2018, his first draft, he got Taron Johnson in the 4th. He got Saran Neal, who's a very good depth cornerback, as well as a star-studded special teams guy in Saran Neal. And then he also got Wyatt Teller, who, yes, he did trade, but he drafted him in the 5th round, and he's a great offensive lineman. Again, 2019, drafted Cody Ford, second round, 38th overall. AJ Epinesa in 2020 in the 2nd round, Zach Moss in the 3rd. But in that same year, he finds Gabe Davis in the 4th. He finds Tyler Bass and Isaiah Hodgins, who, yes, is now playing with the Buffalo Giants in the 6th. And then Dane Jackson in the 7th. So he might not be hitting on those day 2 picks, but the later day 3 picks where he is nailing. So, yes, you would love him to hit on those, round 2, round 3 picks that, have the potential to be great to solid players. I know I did that backwards, but very good players in those rounds. But for every one that he might be missing in the 2nd and 3rd round, he's finding somebody in the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds that are just as good. I mean, Dane Jackson's going to be a starter starting the season. You got Gabe Davis, who's the starting outside wide receiver opposite Stephon Diggs. You got Taron Johnson, who's one of the best slot guys in the league. You got Tyler Bass, who's one of the best kickers in the league. So, yes, he's missing on those 2nd and 3rd round picks, which you would love him to start hitting on, but it all evens out. If you're getting like 2 or 3 guys that are either starters or depth pieces in every single draft, I think you're a pretty good drafter. I mean, I don't think there's been a single draft where he's just struck out and every player has just stunk. It's just, I just wish that he would start trading those day 2 picks, Brandon Beane, because obviously you're not hitting on those ones and they have higher value than the day 3 picks. So if you trade those day 2 picks for now talent, you can't miss anymore, and people will stop giving you a hard time like people here on this podcast that start with the letter P and ends with a K.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything you said. You had a lot of points there. I did try to find something quickly just to see if anyone recently from any of the big news articles had any kind of point system or just how people have drafted recently, who's done really well. The Bills were ranked 7th, but they included how many seasons the Bills have been successful in general, which has a lot to do with drafting Josh Allen, which even when Josh Allen was taken, I mean, if you want to just talk about him for a moment in general, I mean, he was not the consensus pick at that point in the draft. I mean, you and I both at the time were like, why aren't we going with Josh Rosen? I know it's obviously embarrassing to talk about at this point, but I know a lot of Bills fans felt that way, and it was like, oh, why aren't we going this guy? We're going this raw quarterback out of Wyoming. That seems foolish of the Bills to do, and yet here we are. We wouldn't be anywhere without Josh Allen. So the Bills end up getting 27 draft points. They had 24 starting seasons among the last 5 years of drafted players. I believe that's how it's going. And then it kind of goes into how their divisional wins did, wild card wins, all that kind of stuff. We have 1 second-team All-Pro that they drafted, and then in general, 24 starting seasons over the last 5 years for the drafted players that you have. So, I mean, it just could be better, but like you said, I think he's done a really good job mixing in, picking up players in free agency, picking up players in trades, trading people away. Like, overall as a GM, Beane's been fine. I don't think anyone would argue that. I know there was another article I read, I think it was by The Athletic, and they talked to, I think, like 23 agents throughout the NFL community, and they were all anonymous, didn't have to say who they were or anything, and they talked about just asking the agents a bunch of different questions, and a few of them, they were all pretty much GM related, not all of them, but a lot of them, and Bean was high on a lot of people's list for having to deal with him, how he handles things, how he handles his roster, how he handles the players, how he handles agents. So I have absolutely nothing against Brandon Bean whatsoever. He's going to be here for a while. He's doing an extremely good job building this roster, but like you said, we just wish he would hit a little bit higher on those day 2 picks.
So, Phil, like we said, the season's kicking off next week, Monday Night Football in New Jersey versus the Jets. It's a very anticipated home opener now that the Jets are relevant. Again, I had them second in the division last year, and I was wrong. I was off by a year. I have them finishing second this year. I think they're drastically improved from where they were last year, and I thought last year they were decent considering the quarterback play they got from the likes of Mike White and Zach Wilson, who was the second overall pick. My God, Phil, I don't know how I got that one so wrong. But
bust.
Yeah, bust. But Aaron Rodgers thinks as soon as he retires, Zach Wilson's ready to take over and just launch them into the kingdom. But yeah, he probably thought of that when he was in the dark room. That a lot of stupid thoughts come to your head. But Bills are projected to be division favorites for the people that are not mainstream talking heads that I can't stand anymore. But I don't watch any of that stuff. So I'm asking you as a local talking head, what are your thoughts on the season and where you believe the Bills can go and where do you think they might go?
Yeah, I think they are positioned. I mean, this can kind of lead into, I don't want to talk too much because it'll lead into one of our next segment in a moment, but I think they're positioned well to do. I mean, they're similar to, in a way, the Bandits who we talked about, kind of rinse and repeat. The Bills have a roster already built that can challenge anyone in the AFC. Yes, it'll be difficult. Yes, the AFC's quite good compared to the NFC, especially right now. The NFC is just, I don't really know what's going on over there other than a lot of teams that are bad. The AFC seems to be just powerhouse after powerhouse and stacked, and it's going to be tough. But I think the Bills have constructed a roster that if things go their way and if things hit and everything that they need to go right goes right, I think they have, Super Bowl aspirations, and I think they can get there and win it all. But if things go wrong, it can, I think, kind of go wrong a little quicker than maybe we would like with some of the lack of offseason accusations as far as, like you mentioned last episode, a wide receiver too. If Gabe Davis can do it, if he can't, where do they go from there? And I mean, middle linebacker, I talked about that. I wasn't thrilled that they didn't really bring anyone else in other than the rookies or, a few veteran players who can fill the position. But we think that their defense might shift away from it anyway. But still, there's, I think, some holes on the team that I think will be immediately pointed at if things are starting to go poorly. But at the same time, if everything goes right for this team, I think they have, Super Bowl is, I want to say sky's the limit. Super Bowl is the limit. And I think they do have a roster that can get them there.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because I think this is the deepest roster they've had in the Josh Allen, Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott era. But it also, I think, has some of the biggest question marks that we've had since they've, won the division and have Super Bowl aspirations where, hey, what's middle linebacker look like? How does this offense get called? Can James Cook take that next role? How does the offensive line look? Will the defensive line be able to hold up and not look embarrassed like they did in the playoffs? Are the cornerbacks and safeties aging out, especially at the safety department with Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer? Can they hold up for a full season after, their injury-riddled 2022 season? It's this. There's a lot of questions, but you can't deny on paper that they're the most talented and the deepest they have been in that era. But I definitely agree with you. I think that if everything goes right, this team has as good of a shot as anybody else to win the championship. And if they were holding the Lombardi Trophy in February, I got there.
You did.
I wouldn't be shocked, and I don't think anybody else would really be shocked. And I definitely think they're going to have more hurdles to overcome this year because of the division's better, because the AFC is so loaded and talented, and not just wide receiver talent, but everybody else around the conference is just so much better than the NFC. NFC's got, the 49ers, who are relying on a last pick of a draft and Brock Purdy, who is just coming off an injury, and Jalen Hurts. There's literally nobody else. That South, Phil, Tampa Bay, New Orleans, Carolina, and Atlanta. The Bills would go freaking wild in that when they go 6-0 in the division, and they're stuck facing Miami and the Jets 4 times. So, Phil, like I said, they definitely can win this whole thing. I wouldn't be shocked if they do. And like you said, this transitions into our last part of this segment, and we did it last year, and I think we were pretty good at it. I think there was one that I was dead wrong with, the Buffalo Bills winning the Super Bowl. I was wrong about that one, but it's the bold prediction part of the offseason, which is about to become the regular season here. Phil, 3 bold predictions for this season. Would you like to start first, or would you like me to start first with your number 1?
Yeah, I can kick it off. My first one's negative, so it kind of ties into what we were just talking about. But I'm gonna go negative. I don't necessarily believe this before I get jumped on by everybody, similar to your love of the Toronto Rock.
You just had why you got to throw me under the bus there, man? You're gonna I'm gonna say something negative here, but don't forget what he said over here.
If I'm going down, you're going down with me. But my first bold prediction is, again, not necessarily something I believe, but something I could see, and that's the Bills not winning the AFC East this year. I don't think it'll happen, but with the Miami Dolphins and New Jersey Jets both looking much better than they have in the past years, especially the Jets, New England is kind of just there. I mean, it's insane to think that they're not talked about at all anymore, given the run they had, but they can be buried for the next, 6 decades and still sadly be relevant. But they're still a scrappy team, and they can win when they want to win, and their defense is still impressive. The Bills over-under this year is 10.5. The Jets and Miami are sitting at 9.5. I know over-unders are estimations, and it doesn't really mean that much, but the AFC East is very talented. The Bills' schedule and the entire AFC East schedule, from what I saw, is just brutal for everybody. Pretty much, I mean, I forgot who I was looking at, but they had the AFC East as the bottom 5 teams with the hardest schedule, and it was the entire division had the toughest schedule of the entire year. So all of these games are going to be tough. They can go any way, and just 1 or 2 bad things to happen here and there, and your season's, I'm not going to say looking in trouble. I think the Bills, no matter what, make the playoffs. And again, I think the Bills will win the AFC East, but I could see them losing out. I think if they did lose out, it'd be to the Jets, who have a little bit more competent quarterback play than Miami. And it's the things we kind of talked about. Like, I mean, in the last segment, we just talked about where do I think the Bills can be if things go right. If things go wrong, which is Dorsey not taking that next step with his offense, being as kind of boring and bland as they were last year, relying on Allen to do literally everything and play hero ball, which I don't want him doing. But if the offense just doesn't take that next step in creativity or direction, and McDermott can't handle coaching and calling the defense at the same time, which we haven't really seen at all for him in his entire career, I think things could go poorly for the Bills at a quick pace with a very difficult schedule and a lot of potential close games. And I think that there's a outside possibility they do not win the AFC East. Again, I don't think they really won't. I do think they will win it, but I think there's a reality and a possibility where they do not.
Phil confirmed Buffalo Bills hater.
Pretty much, yes.
No, I can see it. I don't think it'll happen. Like you said, I don't think it'll happen, but there is a way for that to happen where they don't win the division.
I'll put it this way: it's easier than I wish it was.
Right. They could end up finishing 3rd in this division if things go wrong, like we've brought up multiple times in the offseason so far, where if all those things go wrong and they finish 3rd in the division, I wouldn't be completely shocked. Right. I mean, I guess I would be shocked, but it wouldn't be completely shocking. For my number 1, I went all positives. I like the little twist of going negatives there, Phil.
You're welcome.
By season end, and this is probably going to shoot me in the foot. I'm going to get this one dead wrong because I was wrong all offseason here. By season's end, Kaiir Elam will be the Bills' second best cornerback, and I think he might be their second best cornerback right now. They're just I don't understand it. I know he's having issues in practice, and we've run over all that nonstop, so I'm not going to dive into the negatives of it. But you saw towards the end of last season, and again, I've said this a million times, he was their best cornerback on the field, even above Tre'Davious White, who was still coming back from that knee injury, where he was still working his way back and getting back up to full speed. I thought Kaiir Elam was playing the best from that position on the whole entire team. I think, personally, I just think he's a baller. I don't think he's a practice player. I think he just steps up into that role when he's called upon in games that are meaningful and just takes the bull by the horns and just goes with it. And you kind of saw that in the playoff time. You kind of saw that in the Miami game and down the stretch. He was just playing unbelievable in lockdown defense. And I think he's just one of those type of players that in game action, he's better than he is in practice. I just wish that he would get a little bit better in practice so they would give him the time that he can earn in the game. Like Sean McDermott is very much, you earn the position and you earn the time on the field in practice. And if you're just not a good practice player, you're not going to see the field as much as you probably, in my opinion, deserve, because I think he just has the highest ceiling. So that's my first prediction. Kaiir Elam, second best cornerback by the end of the season.
I mean, I'd love to say I believe it, but I'm going to wait until we see it, I guess. I mean, like you said, I mean, he's had moments where he's shined. It's only his second year, so I mean, we've talked all preseason about not beating him down because he is still so young. He is, in that situation where you expect him to grow, develop. Again, I think he was supposed to be a little bit more NFL ready than he seems to be, but at the same time, last year they just didn't seem like they were giving him all of the chances that he kind of should have gotten, and then when he did, he played fine. So like you said, I think there is definitely a world where he will be the second best cornerback on the team. And I think more than anything, we're kind of rooting for it. We kind of hope he steps up into that role and plays it really well, because I think you and I both want that to happen, not only for him, but for the Bills. So I hope you're correct.
Yeah, big year for Kaiir Elam. I mean, you see what happened with Boogie Basham going into his third year. You don't want that to happen. Or a first-round draft pick and a cornerback that you're hoping would be opposite of Tre'Davious White for years to come. So, Phil, what is your number 2 of 3 bold predictions for this upcoming Buffalo Bills season?
I will keep it on the defensive side of things, and this one is pretty bold, I feel like, but I got Von Miller getting 10-plus sacks during the year. I don't know if I want to include playoffs or not. I feel like I should, because it's going to be tough when he's already out at least 4 games, and we don't know when he's coming back after that. But with that in mind, he did have 8 sacks in only 11 games last year. He's coming off a major injury, but he's done it once before. Obviously, he was about 10 years younger last time he was coming off his first ACL injury. But the year after that, he played a full season with 14 sacks, so he's come off this injury before, been very successful. This year, he's got Leonard Floyd on the other side of him, making things a little bit easier, and he also has another year older with Rousseau. And I think just when he is ready to get back on the field, I think he's going to be extremely hungry. I think he's already probably upset that, he's on the pup for this year to start, and I think he's going to be just itching to get back out there, and I think he can finish with 10-plus sacks on the season.
I think he can if he gets enough games. Like, I don't think he's lost the step. I think he definitely can get the 10.
Depends on when he's actually back.
Right. I'm just a little worried they might give him the Tre'Davious White treatment, where it's like, hey, we don't need you to get healthy. I don't think he's going to be back for week 5, because week 5 they're in London.
Yeah, I
so
think
at the earliest he's back
that.
in week 6.
Yeah.
So he's definitely missing, in my mind, at least 5. Confirmed 4, but at least 5 for me, because I don't think they're going to make him play over in London, make that long trip. He might still make the trip, but I just can't see him playing in London for week 5. But yeah, definitely, I think he can still do it. It's just, will he have enough games to be able to do it? But he could only play in 5 and get 2 each. So there you go. But my second one is also on the defensive end, and I came up with this bold prediction before they added Christian Kirksey to their practice squad, but the more I'm thinking about it, I'm sticking to it. I'm sticking to I'm being bold for my bold predictions, Phil. Dorian Williams will be the Bills' middle linebacker by the bye week. That is what I'm going with. That is what I'm sticking with. I'm pulling up their schedule right now to find out exactly when their bye week is, and it's loading nice and slow for me. Here we go. Their bye week is bye week 13. So they're in Philly the week after, or no, the Sunday after Thanksgiving. Then they got a bye week, and then they will be playing in Kansas City, then Dallas, Chargers, New England, and Miami. So a terrible down the stretch. I forgot how tough that was. But I think he is that Kirksey got cut for a reason from Houston. And I know he probably got cut because it was kind of maybe more his wish and they were trying to give him the veteran's role of, hey, go sign with somebody that maybe can win and you don't want to be part of a retool here. But I'm a little hesitant. I think he's lost a bit of a step, and I think Dorian Williams, just what I saw in those 2 preseason games, he didn't play in the third because he was hurt, but pairing him next to Matt Milano would just be absolutely terrifying, and I think their defense would just go in a different. I don't think he would play. He wouldn't be a Tremaine Edmonds in the every snap kind of thing. They're still going to be using Taylor Rapp a lot. They're still going to be throwing in Kirksey a bit. I think they're going to be going like 5 DBs a lot this whole year. I mean 6 if you want to toss in Taron Johnson because he doesn't come out the field either. But I think he just has the highest ceiling. And I think to get to the promised land, you need to go high ceiling players. And I think that's why Elam and Williams will both be key contributors to the Buffalo Bills if they win the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, I like him a lot, so I am all in on it. Him and I know you love Elam, but I'd also like Benford to be somewhere on the field with the amount of ability he's shown so far and the maturity he's shown to somehow surpass Elam and at times surpass Dane Jackson. I think he's just another one who, hopefully, if Elam pans out, just doesn't get lost in the shuffle and finds a way onto the field, at least as a rotational player, because what he's shown so far when he has had the opportunity, he's been really solid. So I think he's another kind of diamond in the rough for Brandon Beam, but I like him as a lot as well. And Dorian Williams, like you said, huge fan. So I hope 2 for 2 that I hope you are correct. Like you said, yours are positive, so I would, I guess, hope that yours are correct.
Benford, another day 3 picks. Brandon Bean, trade those day 2 picks. But Phil, what is your third and final bold prediction for this upcoming season?
Third one is also positive. I'm staying on the offensive side of things, or going to the offensive side of things, actually, and I'm going to go and hop on the hype train that is Dalton Kincaid.
Choo-choo.
And I'm going to give him a top 5 rookie tight end rookie season. I already said rookie, but a top 5 rookie tight end season in NFL history. He needs to catch at least 60 passes and have at least 7 touchdowns to surpass both of those. I think it was 4 rookie tight ends have at least 7 or more touchdowns. 5 rookie tight ends have at least caught 60 passes. There's only 2 rookie tight ends in NFL history to go over 1,000 yards. I don't think he's going to be that kind of player. I don't think he's going to be able to get something like that, but I do think there's a world where he gets over 60 receptions, and there is a world where he gets 7 or 8 touchdowns in this style of offense, drafted in the first round. They are expecting, I would assume, a lot of him, and they are leaving a lot of, he's the biggest offseason acquisition for an offense that is looking for something, for some kind of change, some kind of difference. I know James Cook will be going into his second year, and I think he'll make a big jump as well, but I think Kincaid is kind of the guy they're relying on to change this offense in some way. I mean, again, the first round draft pedigree, everything he's shown in preseason, I think the talent is there. I think the opportunity is there. And with Josh Allen, I think if he can make him kind of his blanket guy in a way and find him as a huge red zone threat, I don't think I think just the path to 60 catches and 8 touchdowns, I think, is there for Kincaid if he can grab it.
I agree with the catches. I'm not sure about the touchdown, just because I think with Dawson Knox there and the connection that he has with Allen in the red zone, I can see Dawson Knox stealing a lot of those touchdowns, but I definitely can see the 60 receptions. I just, the more the season's coming around and the more I've seen of Dalton Kincaid, I'm warming up to the idea. Again, still just warming. I'm not there yet. I'm still half filled glass right now. But I definitely could see the 60 catches because I think he's going to be the guy that moves the sticks quite a bit, that he's going to be that relied upon third down role type of player for Josh Allen in the slot role. So I agree with the receptions. I think 7 touchdowns might just be pushing it a bit. I can see 4 or 5 from him, but I also have him in guillotine, so I definitely need a lot of touchdowns. So I will. I love the bold prediction from you, Phil. So my third one here is, and mine is also on the offensive end, Stephon Diggs. The man that everybody hates, that he wants out of Buffalo, and he doesn't believe this team can win, and he's not friends with Josh Allen anymore, and they're bickering nonstop, blah, 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 blah. He will not only break the single-season reception record that was set by Michael Thomas in 2019 with 149. But he will also break the single season receiving yards record set in by Kelvin Johnson in 2014. I'm sorry. I don't know why I was reading that like I messed up the year. Phil,
you put it backwards compared to your first ranking.
Yeah, that's why I got all messed up. He set the single season receiving yards record with 1964 by Kelvin Johnson in 2012. So yeah, I definitely screwed myself.
You wanted to say that Kelvin Johnson got it in 1964.
I was trying to figure out what number I was trying to figure out what number I messed up there, like 2014. That seems right.
And then I saw the Johnson 1964. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, I got Diggs with like 155 receptions for over 2,000 yards. And you got to remember, both of those records were set when there was only 16 games played. So there's 17 here. As long as Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs are healthy, they're going to carry this offense. And I think Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs are out to send a message that, hey, there's no problem here. We're still the best in the world. We're still the best dynamic duo here. And watch this. Watch the records that we're going to set here.
Yeah, I mean, his first year with the Bills in 2020, he had 127 catches and about 1,500 yards. So if you go off of those numbers alone, you're really not adding that much more to it. I mean, you give him another 25 catches and you give him another 500 yards with those 25 catches, and you're right there. So it's definitely there for the taking. Like you said, with the, I guess we'll say, drama that's happening, and just even in general, Diggs wanting to be a focal part of the offense even last year, even though he was a pretty big part of the offense. But there were games for sure where you and I kind of agreed that Diggs kind of disappeared, and it was confusing why your number one player is disappearing on the offensive side of the ball outside of Allen. So I think this year they will be hyper-focused on getting him more opportunities, and if anyone on the offense can kind of step up and maybe draw a little bit of coverage, or if Dorsey can even get a little bit more creative in how they move Diggs around and get him more opportunities in different ways and just find a way to work him truly into the offense 10, 15 times a game, I think that kind of record is within his grasp. If it's, again, if everything kind of goes well. These are bold predictions for a reason. They're not going to be the easiest to achieve, but I do once again see that as a possibility.
Thank you. I saw his numbers in the past too, so it's a bit of a jump for the.
It is, but
right in the receiving it's a bit of a jump, but it's possible with the offense they're going to run. And like you said, he just disappeared in halves where they just weren't targeting him, where they would go like 3 or 4 drives in a row without even targeting Stephon Diggs, and I could see why his frustrations would pop up. So, yeah, those are our bold predictions. We'll see who we get right and which ones we get right in when the season comes to a close. But on our next show with the Buffalo Bills, we'll be actually talking about the first game played and what it is like around the NFL and all that fun stuff, because we're delaying our recording a day, and that means YouTube will be out a little bit later on Wednesday or possibly even Thursday, just because how long it takes to upload and edit and stuff like that. But the normal recording will be out on Wednesday talking about the Buffalo Bills, and YouTube will be out very shortly. So if you like us on YouTube and get to see our beautiful faces, you can just a little bit of a delay there. But Phil, we'll move on to Fantasy Blitz. True Blitz style, and the off season for fantasy is over. We are in live action, and as we mentioned a few weeks ago, this year for Fantasy Blitz, which is freshly named, so I don't know why I said that, but we will be giving a player that is outside of the top 12 for running backs or wide receivers, and or outside of the top 10 for tight end and quarterback for that week's rankings, that we believe will finish inside those ranges. So we're picking a player outside the top 12 for running back and wide receiver, and or a player outside the top 10 for tight end and quarterback that we think is going to finish inside those. So we're each going to list one player and let you know why we believe he is a must start and he is a week winning player for that week. For week 1, and because we are still recording on Wednesdays, we do now, and Phil, I know you're going to be very happy about this, Thursday football is open and available to use. So, Phil, who is your must-start Fantasy Blitz player for week 1 of the fantasy football season?
Yeah, week 1, I am going with a guy that I picked up in one of our leagues recently, and the main reason I'm going with this player is because it might be the only time all season you can use him with some sort of confidence and hope that he puts up decent numbers, and that is Deion Jackson of the Indianapolis Colts, arguably their RB1 right now, with Zach Moss out and rookie, was it Evan Hall, right? Is Evan Hall?
Yeah, that's why I'm giving you the thumbs down. I hate this
I know,
pick.
but he's a fifth-round rookie. I don't think in week one with a rookie quarterback they're going to go with a rookie set, at least not right off the bat. I could see Hall eventually kind of eking more work and kind of taking over Deion Jackson eventually, which is why another reason I kind of picked him, because this might be the week for him. Moss is still injured. I think Jackson will be the one they rely on, being that a little bit more of a veteran presence, and with a rookie QB, I think that they could arguably run a lot, and you could also see a lot of dump-off passes from Richardson just trying to get out of any kind of situation. You might just find Deion Jackson out of the backfield quite a bit and kind of rely on the running game for both passes and running in general, trying not to overwhelm the rookie quarterback in his first ever game. I don't see him going out there and throwing 40 passes. So I think it's going to be a run-heavy scheme in week one, and I think you're going to see a lot of Deion Jackson in this game, and I don't know if he's going to be able to crack all the way up to top 12, but he's currently ranked 37th in ESPN's week one ranking. So if he can get in the top 20 as an RB2, I will absolutely take that kind of jump. And I do think he has the ability, because again, I just don't see them relying on a rookie running back with a rookie QB, both in their first games, all that much. I think it's going to be a lot of Deion Jackson, at least in week one. After that, who the heck knows what's going to happen with that running back room.
I get it. It makes sense. It just feels like a personal attack because I have Evan Hull, and I might be starting him in guillotine. So
yeah, you've been running hot on the Hull train.
I'm trying. I believe in him. He was a receiver back in college, so I think a lot of the dump offs are end up going to him and passing down. So we'll see. We will see. I definitely like how you preferenced it, that it was a 1 week play to start, and then you probably not have him blow up for like 3 touchdowns and then quickly trade him away to somebody else. Find a sucker in your league and trade him. But I definitely like the deeper pick. I went with somebody who's also a bit deeper, 25th ranked running back on the week in projections for ESPN, and he plays in the first game of the NFL season against the Kansas City Chiefs. That is David Montgomery, and I only picked him because I think Detroit's offense is going to be actually very good this year. Also because I think their defense is not that good. I think they're going to be improved, but they're also going to have to put up a ton of points because I don't think their defense is going to be able to stop anybody. Well, not very many people. Jahmyr Gibbs, for those people that are worried, Jahmyr Gibbs is their first-round draft pick, 12th overall pick. He's going to steal the role. I think he's going to have more of the DeAndre Swift role of last year, where it's going to be a lot of dump-off passes, a lot of the receiving game. But remember, Phil, you will definitely remember this. Who was the running back opposite of DeAndre Swift last year? Oh, yeah. It was the running back that led the league in rushing touchdowns, Jamal Williams. He's gone. He's in New Orleans. David Montgomery is coming in, and he's going to have the Jamal Williams role. That means major touchdown upside. I can see him going against the Kansas City Chiefs, who are without one of the best interior defensive lineman and Chris Jones, who's still sitting out the season. They're going against the Chiefs, who are going to have to keep up. They're going to have to keep up with the Kansas City Chiefs in that offense. There's going to be a lot of touchdowns scored in this game. Definitely take the over, and I got David Montgomery finishing in the top 12 this week in fantasy football for week 1.
Yeah, I'm super high on Gibbs just because everybody was, and I really wanted him. I didn't get him, so that was depressing. But I do agree that I think he's going to be much more of the passing down role. Again, you also have a rookie in Gibbs, so again, week 1, when he has a veteran back, it's a little bit different than Bijan Robinson, who is pretty much the guy. I know they have Algier behind him, but for the most part, I mean, that's 2 younger running backs. This is Gibbs and Demont, the other one, Deion Jackson, and a rookie. And so I think just having that veteran back behind you, I think they're going to, probably ease the rookie in a little bit. Sure, they're going to want to get their electric rookie out there. I'm sure he will have plenty of passing down work in week 1, but like you said, goal line work, probably going to Demont, and with the Detroit offense being as good as it was last year, probably going to continue that this year. They are a pretty high-scoring team. It's going to be a very high-scoring game. I could easily see Demont, like you said, 2 or 3 touchdowns, which is what you're hoping for from that situation.
And David Montgomery is a good running back, and he's going to a team that has a much better offensive line. So it should be very interesting. You could break one and end up in the top 12 anyways. So, Phil, that will close out week 1 of our Fantasy Blitz. Come back each week, and we'll track these and figure out by the end of week 17 which one finish with the most top 12 or top 10 appearances. And I like how we both started with a running back for week 1. So we'll see what happens in week 2 next week. So, Phil, we'll finish up with the Buffalo Bandits. The draft is coming up next Saturday, the 16th. Now, next week, we're going to kind of lock in exactly what we want them to do and what we would do if we were the GM of the Buffalo Bandits. But for this episode, let's just toss out some ideas and kind of see what sticks and come back next week to see what we actually want. But the Buffalo Bandits hold the 15th overall pick in the first round next week. I want to personally thank Inside Lacrosse and Steven Stamp for their in-depth looks on all these guys that I'm going to be mentioning. But Phil, I guess we can kind of go over what happened last year. Last year we saw them go heavy on defense, grabbing Robinson, grabbing Wires, and Belter, all defensive first-round draft picks, going 13, 14, and I believe it was 19th with Belter. I think personally this year, I don't think they're going to go, unless a good defenseman falls to them, I don't see them going much defensive this year just because of how defensive loaded they went last year. I can see them more targeting a transition guy or a forward guy. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking for transition last year. I was looking for transition probably the year before, and the year before that, the Bandits just don't seem to care what we think about having a decent transition guy on the team. But that being said, I think they saw what a really solid transition guy can mean to a championship caliber team. Not only Calgary, but also Ian McKay kind of completely transformed his game due to the injuries to be a ridiculous transition player last year. He's always been an incredible. Definitely should have been in the at least top 3 for that award. He played just amazing. I mean, he's always been really, really good at defense, but last year they forced him to play a little bit more offense due to the injuries. He stepped right in and played amazing, and then he was playing just a true insane end-to-end double shift kind of game where he was playing a lot of defense, a lot of offense due to those injuries, and he played it really, really well. And what you and I both said the second he almost got injured in the playoffs was just simply the Bandits don't have somebody behind him to really step into that role at all. And I think that was just really eye-opening. Obviously, the way Ian McKay played last year, I mean, like we just said, you and I both think that he should have been in, at the very least, top 5 in the entire league of a transition player. So, yes, you're not going to have that coming off your bench. But I just think the style of play that he was able to transition his game into a just more transition player last year and less simply defense, I think that the Bandits should have been shown what that can mean, not only to your defense and your offense as far as transitioning, but if you do have injuries, you have someone who has offensive ability that's already locked into your lineup and can simply double shift things and make that transition to a little bit different style of an offense or defense. Either way, I mean, they can just kind of make that pain a little less if you're really hurting with some of these injuries. So I really want them to go after a true solid defenseman, but someone who is just that true transition player, can do both, can play really solid offense at the same time, be extremely good in their own end. I think that's just one aspect, and possibly the only aspect that the Bandits are really missing is that true incredible transition game, like you mentioned, like a Calgary team has, and we know how close they got to the finals as well. So that's really what I'm looking for this year. It was what I was looking for last year. It didn't happen. They went full defense, which is fine, but it's definitely what I'm looking for again this year.
Yeah, again, before I dive into this, again, thank you to Inside Lacrosse and Steven Stamp, because without them, I don't think I would have been able to pull some of these names out of my butt here. But there's top guys in this draft: Dyson Williams, Sean Williams' kid, who's going to be just an unbelievable player in this league. Adam Potras, he's not going to be available. Levi Anderson, Ryan Sheridan, Callum Jones, none of those guys are going to be there for the Bandits unless they move up, and unless something crazy happens, none of those guys are going to fall to the Buffalo Bandits. But I think there are some players in this draft that could be in the 15th position, and I was kind of looking at guys that, do have that transition role, do have that forward type role as well, where it would fit a role with this team where they don't have to come in and contribute. That's what's nice about the Buffalo Bandits here is it's not like you're at the top of the draft and these guys are going to have to come in and contribute right away. I'm looking for guys that are probably going to be going back to school where you don't have to sign them, so you don't have to worry about creating a spot because, like we've said over and over and over and over, this team is loaded. There's not many, if any, spots available for this team. Even on the practice squad, there's not very many openings for this team whatsoever. You still got Wires and Belter who also have to sign. So I think what the Buffalo Bandits are going to try to do is draft guys who are going to go back to school so they don't have to worry about rostering. Again, take a problem and just push it. Make it FBP, Future Bandits Problem. Don't have to worry about it. That can be a slogan for the show. But Jacob Hickey, he's a transition lefty. He plays for the Toronto Beaches Junior A team. He also played with Dylan Robinson the last couple of years. Phil, he's 6'4". He plays both ends of the field. He has 35 goals and 86 points over the last 2 seasons. That sounds like a true transition player to me. Peyton Cromer, he's a left forward for Brooklyn LC in the MSL, and he's in Virginia. He's going to be returning for his 5th year of college, so you don't have to worry about signing him. But he hasn't been able to stay healthy, and that's why I think he might be able to slide down to the Buffalo Bandits. If he can stay healthy, he is an electric forward for the left side of that offense there. Quinn Ingles, he's a right transition forward for I can never pronounce how would you pronounce that word for me?
I think it's Coqueladum Adivax.
Sure, we'll go with that, with the WLA. I was dreading saying that one, but he's another transition guy that can also be a threat from the back end, and he's going back to school. He's at 113 points in 42 games in Junior A over the last 3 years. And then the last name here, Caleb Creaser. He's a left defenseman / transition player for the Peterborough Lakers in the MSL and Lehigh. He's a goalie on the field, in the field. He's super quick, but he can also help on the back end. He's more a defensive first type player, but can also play very well with the ball up the field. Again, he's another guy that's going back to school. I like those guys that can and do play goalie, because it helps you be able to play the defense role as well, because you know the positioning that the goalie wants you in because you've been in that position, whether it's on the field or in box. I think any of those guys that I mentioned, those 4 names, Hickey, Cromer, Ingles, or Creaser, any of those guys could be available for the 15th overall pick for the Buffalo Bandits, and I wouldn't hate any of them because I think 3 of the 4 of them fit that role of that transition player that the Buffalo Bandits really want and I think personally need behind Ian McKay, because, other than Dylan Robinson, there's not another super talented transition player, and even Dylan Robinson's still growing into that role. But I think you need to grow and develop somebody behind Ian McKay, because you saw in that game, everybody just gasping Ian McKay went down because, like you just said, there's not anybody that really can replace what Ian McKay does for this team, and you really need somebody growing in the pipeline to help out if lacrosse is a violent sport and dangerous sport and a lot of players get hurt. You need somebody behind Ian McKay.
Yeah, you mentioned all the names that pretty much I was looking at. I mean, as soon as I saw some of your lists, it was very similar to my list as well. For all the reasons you mentioned, I mean, Hickey would be incredible, especially with his size, playing both offense and defense. I think being that size of a player, knowing that he can put up 35 goals and 86 points in 2 years, being someone who's 6'4", I think that's huge. I mean, that truly shows that he can be a powerful defensive player, but at the same time, still has quite the offensive touch to be able to score at that size and be just very imposing as a transition player. So I think he would be incredible for the Bandits to pick up. And like you said, some of these other guys, Cormier, Ingles, Creaser, be happy with all of them. The other idea is to simply trade away if they really don't fall to how you want, or trade up. Like if the Bandits really have somebody like Hickey, to me, that if it's getting really close to that pick and you don't think he's going to be there,
go get him.
I don't think the Bandits' extra picks in this draft mean anything. I mean, all of their picks, for the most part, are at the very back end. That's what happens when you win a championship. You're drafting last in every single round, and that's pretty much how it looks this year for the Bandits, other than their first round pick, which is 15th, and then obviously after that are the compensatory picks, so you have to go through those. But outside of that, I mean, you're looking at 37th, you're looking at 52nd, 67th, 81st, and 96th for the Bandits. I mean, those are just very late picks in every single round. Obviously, again, that's what happens when you win a championship, but because of that, you're losing out on a lot of talent that's in front of you with all these other teams get a chance at. So if your guy is there in the first round or even in the second round, I have no problem with them trading away a lot of their other picks or even shifting them to next year. But especially this year, in that first round, if you want to move up even like 15 to 13 and you give away a third, but they go out and get that guy that they absolutely wanted, I'm perfectly fine with that, because we mentioned it with the draft picks they already do have, that it's going to be hard to sign all these players and get them playing on this team when there's so limited roster space. Yes, you have some guys that are likely going to age out sooner than later, and yes, you want people in the pipeline to kind of take over those roles, but at the same time, there's drafts every single year. So if you push off, some of these picks, or like you said, pick guys who are going back to school, so you can kind of kick that down the road a little bit and just don't have a logjam of talented players that you can't sign. I mean, look at Nick Miller. He is playing for a different team now. The Bandits drafted him, couldn't find a spot on their roster to keep him, and now you essentially just wasted that draft pick. I mean, it's not the Bandits' fault. I mean, yes, they picked a great player who you really wanted to be on the team, but it's a very competitive team. It's a team that is championship ready in their championship window, so they don't have a lot of roster spots for these draft picks. So in the end, it comes down to essentially, unfortunately, a wasted draft pick, because you can't find a spot for them and they end up going and being with someone else, or you trade them away like Thomas Vason was able to do. And I mean, I'd much rather take a trade than just losing that player outright, but that's what happens when you have so many draft picks and so few spots available on this roster. So they have a lot of ideas. They have a lot of kind of ways they can go, but I hope they package picks either for this draft or next draft and don't simply sit where they are and take 6 picks, because I think you're going to end up losing a lot of those players simply because the opportunity just isn't there on this team right now.
Yeah, I'll try to sum this up because you pretty much took everything I wanted to say, which I guess I did for the players that I mentioned also. But yeah, I mean, I that is my idea. It's just package picks and maybe even a player and go up and make a trade, or make a trade for a now proven talent. But I'm just not sure how much movement is going to be out there. But the team is loaded and there's very few spots left available. Like last year, they had to cut a former second round and a former fourth round pick because there just simply wasn't room. And this year, they still have 5 unsigned draft picks from last year. So it's like you said, it's not really their fault that they're this good and there's this much talent on the team that there's just not any room. Personally, I wish the league would come up with some kind of system where, if there is a draft pick, they can stay in your system 1 year after signing them, or you don't have to worry about losing them and they don't count against a roster spot. Where I don't know how they would do it. I'm just thinking off the top of my head right now, because I think that would be a fun way to not only keep players in the league, but help develop them with the team that drafted them, because you get teams like Colorado is loaded, Toronto who's loaded, Buffalo who's loaded, where they get all these draft picks. There's 6 rounds of the draft, but there's just simply not enough spots for all these players. One, because the sport is so ultra talented and there's so many great players coming into the league every year. But 2, this is a league where you can play until you're 41, like Matt Vince, where you can play up into your high 30s and even into your 40s and keep playing. And, those are spots that aren't getting opened up by players retiring, because players can keep playing and playing and playing. So I just wish there was a way, and again, this is not the Bandits' fault, this is not other teams' fault, this is kind of like a just top of my head kind of thought, but I just wish there was a way where if your draft picks don't make the team, you can still keep them a part of the organization and keep developing them in practice. And I know there's practice players and practice squads and stuff like that, but I just wish there was a spot for draft picks that are signed to the team where they might not be good enough, where you can hey, redshirt this year, something like that, like college, where you redshirt a year, you can't play, but you can stay in the organization and keep developing and see what you do in your freshman year, quote unquote freshman year, the next year. But I definitely agree. They have made trades in the past where they've moved out players for now talent. I mean, last year they moved out a second-round pick out to Calgary for Kellen LeClaire. They moved out last year, and I know Devin May had never played, but they traded the 31st overall pick and a 2024 third-round pick for Devin May, who ended up not playing. But there has been a history of Buffalo making trades and moving some draft capital for now talent. Yes, again, Maya didn't play, Kellen LeClaire did, and he ended up going out to San Diego, signing after he was cut. But I definitely am on your side, where I wish they would, with the system that's in play now, because the system that I just thought of which I actually kind of like now. I'll keep fine-tuning it and maybe submit it to our wonderful Brett Frood commissioner. But, you got to play with the hands that are dealt right now. So I wish that they would shrink the draft capital they have so they don't really have to worry about where they are now with a loaded roster and still 5 picks from last year that have to be signed.
Yeah. There's not much else we can really say about that until we dive into exactly what we want to happen this year at the draft.
Yeah, so stay tuned next week for that. So, Phil, we're right at the hour mark. Is there anything else you would like to add to this episode before we shut it down and get ready for our first nerve-wracking week of fantasy football plus, a Bills game mixed in there?
I did end up finding my Beauts hat, and I've been wearing it most of the episode, and it's real hot now, so I am a little excited that the episode is over.
Yeah, you didn't get to see it because we don't get to see ourselves record yet. You see me as soon as I send you my video, but I also went to the side when you were talking about the first Bill segment and threw on my Burt Beauts shirt. So
we're representing.
We're representing. I don't know why I didn't think of that first, but as soon as you mentioned hat, I was like, I have a shirt. I'm going to throw it on. But yeah, on our next show, we will talk about the Bills' first game versus the New Jersey Jets. We will bring week 2 of our Fantasy Blitz, and we will put on our suit and tie, pretend we are the GM of the Buffalo Bandits. We are Steve Dietrich, and give you exactly what we want to happen next Saturday 2 Saturdays from now, what we want for the Buffalo Bandits to do in the upcoming 2023 NL Draft. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow along with us on Facebook and Instagram and Threads at Buffalo Sports Collective and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.